One concern about child poverty is something you could call social status stagnation. Basically, the development of a child is slowed down compared to the average child. This usually comes through two means. There is the means of the parents, how their parents teach them. Poverty has a way of affecting that. As well as the second being community opportunities are limited or employment opportunities are limited. So let's talk about the first one. Now, parents play a huge role in their children's lives. Sometimes that can be affected by poverty because, maybe to get out of poverty, the parents are trying to work two jobs. Or they might not have had the education that they could pass on to their children. And so that also might slow things down for them. Children who have interaction with their parents, they are able to make friends easier, which is interesting statistic. There was a statistic done. There was 134 children that were measured over a 10-year span, and the research showed that children that had exposure to their fathers long-term contact, they associated with better socio-emotional. They didn't have as many behavioral problems, and once again, they were academically functioning. Some of those habits were better formed there. The other one is that there was a study with 52 students in a city, and the results indicated that there was a strong positive correlation between education results and parental assistance. So that is a big factor in a child's development. Let's talk a little bit about the statistics. So we've mentioned a lot about parents, that they make a big impact on their children, but does poverty really make a big impact? Well, the statistics, even though there are multiple factors that go into it, we do know there's a high correlation, and the statistics are really staggering. People living in poverty, they're reported to have 6.8 times more child abuse and neglect. They're 1.4 times more likely to have a learning disability, 1.3 times more likely to have a parent-reported emotional or behavioral problem. They're twice more likely to repeat a grade and to drop out of high school, and they're 3.1 times more likely to be a teenager that has a birth out of wedlock. So it's really, even though there are other factors that go into it, it's clear that poverty really does have a big impact on a child's development. So let's talk about the second part, the opportunities portion. Now, community opportunities help and hinder a child's future. And now, once someone is in poverty, it's difficult to get out. There's a thing called the poverty cycle. That might be because of financial interest, where it makes it harder for a parent to get out of debt and maybe be around home. And so, anyways, it starts, number one is they're economically disadvantaged. A child starts out a little bit behind with finances. Well, that leads to a developmental disadvantage, like we had mentioned. Maybe the parents aren't around at the time, and so they're not able to prepare or provide their children with the necessities they need that the average child may be getting. That leads to being educationally disadvantaged, which basically means they come into school not as prepared. Research has showed that gap doesn't shorten with every year, it widens. And so every year that child gets a little further and further behind. And maybe they're struggling with grades, or maybe they're just not socially as developed, and so that turns into employment disadvantage because their credentials aren't as high as maybe the next person. And once again, that loops back around, and because a job they may not be making as much for that job, that leads back to an economical disadvantage. So it's a cycle that repeats. It's hard to break. So as a community, how can we help provide opportunities to someone who might be struggling a little bit? Well, there are great opportunities through mutual youth groups, community activities like the YMCA. Those go a long ways in a child's social abilities as well as their confidence. If you're a teacher, you can help their parents show their parents where they should be. And if you're a volunteer, you can be a mentor, not just at a school. Also, you can provide assistance. Donations go a long ways, especially with scholarships. But the main thing I really want to get at is we can't do everything, but we can do something, and that makes a difference. Here are my references. Thank you.